The night before her wedding, my daughter took my house, my car, and left me with nothing. I never imagined that the walls of my home, once filled with laughter and bedtime stories, would feel so cold. The ticking of the clock echoed through the living room like a slow, painful heartbeat. I sat in my recliner, the one I've had since I turned 50, staring at the wedding invitation on the coffee table. It had a soft gold trim and elegant script, Emily and Jordan, it read, followed by the date tomorrow. My daughter was getting married in the morning. It should have been a happy moment, a proud moment. But instead, all I felt was a growing weight in my chest, a silence that hurt more than any shouting ever could. I raised Emily alone since she was 7. Her mother passed away in a car crash that left both of us with wounds we didn't know how to heal. I worked 2 jobs, missed meals, missed sleep, but I never missed a parent-teacher meeting or a piano recital. I gave her everything I had, or so I thought. 2 weeks ago, Emily had asked me to sign some papers. She said they were related to a new job her fiancé Jordan had landed. Something about needing a guarantor for a lease. I didn't question it. Why would I? She was my daughter. I remember her smile that day. So bright, so confident. I felt proud of her stepping into a new chapter. I didn't even read the documents, just signed where she told me to. Tonight, I learned the truth. It was nearly 9 p.m. when Mr. Thompson, my neighbor, knocked on my door. He's 78, always wearing suspenders and smelling faintly of tobacco. "Dan," he said, holding out a yellow envelope. "This was delivered to my place by mistake. Thought you should see it." I took the envelope, opened it, and scanned the pages. My breath caught. My name was on a property deed transfer. My house signed over to Jordan. My car also transferred. It felt like my knees buckled, though I was. Sitting down, my heart raced. I dialed Emily's number. It rang. She picked up after 3 rings. "Dad, everything okay?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "Emily, I just got a notice saying the house is no longer in my name. What's going on?" There was silence on the line, a long one, then a sigh. "Dad, I was going to tell you after the wedding, Jordan and I, we needed the house. We figured you'd be okay with it. You're retiring anyway." I blinked hard. "Okay with it? You forged my signature. You took my home." "I didn't forge it. You signed it." My chest tightened. "I signed what you gave me. You lied about what it was. Please don't make this about you right now. Tomorrow is my big day. We'll talk after. I can't handle this drama tonight." She hung up. I stared at the phone. My hand trembled. I felt like someone had punched a hole through my chest. I stood up, walked to the hallway, and stared at the family photo hanging near the door. Me, Emily, and her mom, taken on her 6th birthday. We all looked so happy, so whole. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, but couldn't bring myself to drink it. My throat felt tight. She had taken everything, my home, my car, my trust. I went into the garage, stood next to the now empty parking space. The car had been moved earlier today. She said it was going for a cleaning before the big day. I hadn't thought twice about it. I sat down on a dusty stool, running my fingers through my gray hair. What happens now? Where do I go? My retirement savings were modest, nothing that could get me a new place on short notice. I had worked all my life for her. Every decision I made after her mother died was for Emily. I skipped dating, skipped vacations, and poured all my love into being the kind of father she could lean on now. She'd taken all that and left me with an empty house and a legal document that made it hers. I couldn't sleep. I walked around the house like a ghost, touching old furniture, staring at walls that held decades of memories. Her growth chart was still marked behind the laundry room door. Her handprints from 3rd grade art class still hung in the hallway. I found myself sitting on her old bed, the one we bought when she turned 10. The sheets were different now, newer, but the bed frame was the same. I remembered the nights she cried over math homework, the mornings she ran late for school, the time she broke her arm falling from the monkey bars, and I slept next to her for a week just to keep her from turning over in her sleep. Had she forgotten all that? Was I really just a stepping stone for her future? The wedding was less than 12 hours away. I wasn't sure if I would go. I wasn't sure if I could look at her without breaking. But part of me wanted to. Not for celebration. Not even for closure. Just to see if she looked me in the eyes. I stayed up the entire night. The house was quiet, and yet it screamed by morning. I packed a small bag with clothes, my father's watch, and the photo of Emily as a baby wrapped in a pink towel, sleeping against my chest in the hospital room. I placed the house keys on the kitchen counter. Didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. I stepped out onto the porch, felt the morning air touch my face. Across the street, Mr. Thompson stood watering his garden. He gave me a small nod. His eyes, old and wise, carried something like understanding. I nodded back, and then I walked not away from the house, but from the version of my life that no longer existed. Where this story leads next, I don't know, but I'm still here, still breathing, and somewhere in this mess, maybe there's another beginning, even if my daughter never looks back. The pavement felt harder than usual beneath my worn shoes. Each step echoed quietly in the early morning stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do. I didn't know where I was walking. I just knew I Couldn't stay in that house any longer. Not after everything that had happened. Not after what she did. My bag was light. Just a few clothes, a watch, and a photo. It was funny how a lifetime of fatherhood could be reduced to a small canvas, tote, and an ache in the chest. I made it to the end of the street before the first car passed me by. A mother and her teenage son, probably rushing to get ready for school and work. She glanced at me briefly. There was nothing in her eyes, no recognition, just a stranger on the road. That's what I had become, a stranger to my daughter, to the home I'd built, to the life I thought I understood. I walked for over an hour before my legs began to tire. The city was waking up now. Buses honked, shopkeepers rolled open their shutters, dogs barked from behind fences. I found a bench near the small park where Emily used to play. She loved the swings. I remember how she used to scream for me too, push her higher, her tiny fists clutching the chains with pure joy in her eyes. I sat down slowly, letting out a soft groan as my back settled against the cold wood. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled the photo from my bag. I stared at it. She was so small, her face nestled in the crook of my arm, eyes closed, mouth barely parted. She used to hold my finger with her whole hand, and now she held my signature weapon I handed her without knowing. I felt something sting my eyes, but I blinked it away. Not here, not now. A young man jogged past me, earphones in, barely noticing the old man cradling a memory. I stayed there until the sun climbed higher, warming the back of my neck. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Emily. Please don't come to the wedding. It'll just make things harder. We need space. Space. She needed space after everything I had given, sacrificed, endured. She needed space. I didn't reply. What could I say that wouldn't bleed? I stood up, stiff from sitting so long, and made my way toward the nearest diner I could remember. Angie's Deli, about 6 blocks down. They served weak coffee and strong opinions, but I needed somewhere to sit, to think. Angie spotted me from behind the counter. Dan, you okay, hun? You look like you've been hit by a truck. I forced a weak smile. Close, a wedding. She raised an eyebrow but didn't ask more. I appreciated that. She poured me a cup, set it down with a quiet clink on the house. Looks like you need it. I sat in the corner booth, same one I used to bring Emily to when she was little. She'd always ask for pancakes shaped like hearts. Angie obliged every time. The scent of coffee brought back those mornings, her laughter, her chocolate-stained smile. I sipped the bitter brew slowly. Outside the window, life kept moving. I didn't belong in that rhythm anymore, not without a home, not without a purpose. After a while, I pulled out my phone again. I stared at Emily's message. My thumb hovered over the screen, wanting to respond, wanting to scream, wanting to ask why, but the words never came. Instead, I opened my contacts and scrolled to one name I hadn't called in years. Ben. My younger brother. We hadn't spoken since our mother's funeral. Too many words left unsaid, too many years wrapped in silence, but I had nowhere else to go. I pressed call. It rang, and rang, then a click. Hello. His voice was rougher than I remembered. Ben, it's Dan. A pause. Dan. Wow, it's been a while. Everything okay? I swallowed. Not really. I was wondering if you had a place I could crash just for a little while. Another pause. Yeah, of course. You okay? You sound like hell. I'll explain when I get there. He gave me his address. Still lived on the edge of town. A bus ride and then some. I thanked Angie, left a tip I couldn't really afford, and made my way to the station. The ride was long, quiet, the kind of quiet that hums in your bones. I watched the city change outside the window. Skyscrapers faded into strip malls. Malls gave way to fields. Trees lined the roads like silent witnesses. Ben greeted me at the door in sweatpants and a faded band tee. He hadn't changed much. Aside from the salt in his beard, he pulled me into a hug. I stiffened at first, then let myself fall into it. It had been too long since someone held me without needing something in return. We sat in his kitchen over sandwiches and cold beer. I told him everything. His face hardened with every word. Jesus, Dan, she really did that. Your own daughter. I nodded. I didn't see it coming. I thought I was helping her. I thought I mattered. He shook his head. You did, you do. She's the one who forgot that. I looked down at my hands. I don't know what to do now. I have no home, no car, no plan. Ben leaned back in his chair. Then you start over. Maybe that's what this is. A chance to rebuild. On your terms this time. His words sat with me long after we stopped talking that night. I lay on his couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. I thought about all the birthdays I planned, all the doctor visits, the scraped knees I kissed, the college tuition I scraped together, and now just a man on a borrowed couch, trying to understand how love could turn into this. But Ben was right. Maybe this was the start of something new. I didn't know where it would go yet, but I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I woke up early. Ben was already in the backyard, watering a few potted plants. He handed me a mug. Sleep okay? I nodded. Better than I expected. We sat in silence for a while, just sipping coffee as the sun warmed the grass. Then he said, you know the old auto shop down by Jefferson's is hiring part-time, nothing fancy, but might help. I looked at him. You think they'd hire someone my age? He shrugged. Only one way to find out. And just like that, a sliver of something returned. Hope, maybe not much, but enough. I stood up, stretched, and smiled. Faintly, let's see what they say. Ben clapped my shoulder. That's the brother I remember. We drove into town together. The road was lined with old memories, places I hadn't seen in years. When we got to the shop, it smelled like oil and old radio music. The manager, a stout man named Rico, looked me up and down. You ever turn a wrench before? Used to fix my own car until my daughter took it. He chuckled. You're hired. Just like that. And for the first time in days, I felt something steady under my feet. It wasn't a home, it wasn't a family reunion, but it was something, a beginning, and I'd take it. The days at the auto shop started blending together. The scent of engine oil, the hiss of air compressors, the distant hum of old country music playing from Rico's dusty radio. It was strange how quickly the routine settled in. Wake up before the sun, coffee with Ben, drive down to Jefferson's clock, in work sweat. There was something oddly comforting about tightening bolts and wiping grease off tired hands, something solid, simple. I didn't have to think too much while I worked, didn't have to remember the way Emily used to run into my arms after school, didn't have to picture her walking down the aisle with a smile meant for someone else. While I sat miles away, not invited, not needed, Rico didn't talk much, but he watched. On my third day, he handed me a set of keys. Old Dodge Outback, he said. Been sitting there for months. Ain't much to look at, but she runs. You fix it, you can use it. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Thank you. It wasn't just a car, it was movement, independence, the first real piece of my life I could claim since Emily had taken everything. I worked on that Dodge in the evenings after shifts. The engine was gummed up, the battery dead. Tires were half flat and the inside smelled like old cigarettes and regret, but I didn't care. I cleaned it out, replaced what I could, scraped rust off the body, sanding it until the metal shined beneath the dirt. Ben started leaving dinner for me in the fridge, quiet gestures that reminded me I still had someone who cared. On the sixth day, the Dodge rumbled to life. It wasn't smooth, but it moved, and when I drove it home, the wind in my face, I felt something like joy. A cracked, dusty joy, but joy all the same. That night, I sat on the porch with Ben. He lit a cigarette, offered me one. I declined. He looked at me sideways. You planning on talking to her? I exhaled through my nose. No, she's still your daughter. Is she? Ben didn't answer right away. The night air was cool. The cicadas hummed. Blood doesn't disappear, Dan, he said finally. But people change. Doesn't mean you have to chase them. I nodded. That was the closest either of us got to philosophy. The next morning I woke to another message. It was from an unknown number. Hi, Mr. Daniels, this is Elise. I used to babysit for you when I was in high school. I heard what happened. Just wanted to say I'm so sorry. If you ever need help with anything or just want to talk, I'd be happy to meet. Elise, she was maybe 17 the last time I saw her. Sweet girl. Used to braid Emily's hair and draw silly cartoons for her to color. I stared at the message for a long time, then replied, Thank you, Elise. That means more than you know. Maybe coffee sometime. She responded almost immediately. Of course, just let me know when I'm free this weekend. I didn't know why I wanted to meet. Maybe just to talk to someone who remembered the version of Emily I still missed. Or maybe because I was tired of carrying it all alone. Saturday came fast. I drove the Dodge into town and parked near the cafe where we agreed to meet. It was a small place, nothing fancy. Painted blue windows, the kind of place where the barista knew your name after 2 visits. Elise was already there, sitting by the window. She stood when she saw me. Mr. Daniels, you look well. I laughed, soft and sad. I looked tired. She smiled. Still, it's good to see you. We sat, ordered coffee. She didn't pry, but I talked anyway. Told her about the papers I signed, the house, the car, the message the night before the wedding. She listened, really listened. Her eyes stayed soft, her voice stayed calm. She loved you, Elise said quietly. She used to talk about you all the time. How you never missed anything, how you made pancakes on Saturdays even when you were dead tired. I looked out the window. I thought that meant something. It did, it probably still does. But people get wrapped up in their own lives, their own choices. It doesn't excuse what she did, but maybe it explains it. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I wanted to. Elise changed the subject. Asked about the auto shop, about Ben. It felt normal, human, not like a man discarded by his only child. When we said goodbye, she hugged me, and for a moment, I felt like someone worth hugging again. I drove home, pulled into Ben's driveway, and sat in the car a long time before going in. Later that evening, I went through the bag I had packed that night. I left the house. At the bottom, folded neatly, was a letter. I had forgotten I wrote it. To Emily. My handwriting was shaky, uneven, but the words were raw. I read it again. Then I added a new page. You took everything I wrote, but you didn't break me. I didn't plan to send it, but writing it felt like breathing after drowning. The next few weeks passed quietly. I worked, fixed up more cars, saved what little I could. Ben's place started to feel less like a refuge and more like a strange version of home. Sometimes we watched baseball together, sometimes we didn't talk at all, but there was comfort in the silence. One Thursday afternoon, Rico pulled me aside. "You got a visitor." I looked up, expecting a customer. It was Emily. My chest clenched. She wore a cream blouse, sunglasses on her head, behind her a new car, not mine. "Dad," she said, voice small. I wiped my hands on a rag. "Didn't expect to see you here." She hesitated. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer, just nodded and walked outside. We stood beside the building, in the shadow of a half-repaired Chevy. She looked older somehow, tired. "I shouldn't have done it like that," she said. I waited. I was scared. "Jordan," he said, "we'd lose the mortgage, that we needed security, and I thought you'd be okay." I crossed my arms. "You didn't ask, you lied." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know. I thought I was doing the right thing, but it wasn't. I hurt you. I know that now." I didn't soften. I couldn't. "Why are you here?" She looked down. "Because I miss you. Because I'm sorry. Because I don't want this to be the end of us." The silence stretched. I didn't know what to say. The pain hadn't gone anywhere, but neither had the love. I nodded slowly. "I don't know how to fix this." "Emily," she looked up. "Maybe we don't fix it. Maybe we just start again." I didn't answer. Not yet. I wasn't ready to forgive, but maybe I was ready to listen, and that was something. Emily stood there for a long time, as if waiting for me to reach out. But I didn't. I couldn't. The wound was too fresh, and even though I could see regret in her eyes, it didn't erase the nights I'd spent alone, replaying the betrayal in my head like a cruel movie. She shifted on her feet. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. I just wanted to see you." The words were heavy, spoken with a softness I hadn't heard in years. A part of me wanted to pull her into a hug, to feel the daughter I used to know pressed against me. But another part, the larger, louder part, stood frozen, remembering the moment I learned I no longer owned the home where she took her first steps. I looked past her to the parking lot, trying to breathe through the ache building in my chest. "You still with him?" I asked, my voice dry. She nodded slowly. "Yes, but things aren't easy." I almost laughed, not in joy, not in amusement, just the bitter sound of irony. "Marriage isn't supposed to be," I said, "but betrayal makes it harder." She didn't argue, didn't justify. She just looked down at her hands. "I thought you'd be angry," Yell cut me off. "I did all that already," I said, when no one was around. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked fast, trying not to let them fall. "I don't expect us to go back to how it was. I know that's gone, but maybe, someday, we could find a new way to be in each other's lives, even if it's not the same." Didn't promise anything I couldn't, but I gave her the only truth I had in that moment. "I'll think about it." She nodded, and just like that she turned to leave. No hug, no dramatic goodbye, just a quiet retreat, like someone slipping out of a room they no longer belong in. I watched her go. I didn't cry, I didn't move, I just stood there, breathing through the storm still raging somewhere inside me. Later that evening, I told Ben she came by. He raised an eyebrow but didn't interrupt. I told him what she said, what I said, how it felt like standing in the middle of an earthquake knowing nothing would ever quite sit the same again. He opened 2 beers and handed me one. "You're handling this better than I would." "I'm not handling it," I said. "I'm just surviving it." He clinked his bottle against mine. "That's still something." That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a pen and paper. I hadn't written anything since a letter I never sent, but now I found myself scratching down words. Again, not to Emily. Not this time, but to myself. A list not of regrets, not of pain, but of what I still had. Ben. The Dodge, a job, hands that still knew how to fix things, a name, a voice, a future answer 10. Yes, but still mine. The next morning, Rico handed me a stack of receipts and asked if I could organize the old records in the back office. "Not glamorous," he said, "but I trust you more than those kids I hire for the summer." I took the stack and headed back. The office smelled like mildew and old ink. Small window let in light through dusty blinds. As I sat sorting receipts into folders, I found my mind wandering back to the way Emily looked as a child, how she used to tug at my pant leg at the grocery store, how she'd fall asleep in the back seat, her cheek pressed against the window, how her tiny voice once whispered, "I love you more than the moon." I rubbed my temples. I wanted to hate her, but the truth was, I loved her so deeply that even after everything, the love hadn't gone. It had just been reshaped, twisted, hollowed, but still there. I'd finished sorting the papers and stepped outside, letting the afternoon air fill my lungs. Ben's truck was parked across the street. He was leaning against it, waiting. I walked over. "You busy?" he asked. "Not particularly. Thought we'd take a drive." We ended up at the lake. The one our dad used to take us to when we were boys. It hadn't changed much. The dock still creaked. The water still shimmered like glass when the wind was still. We sat on the edge with our feet hanging over. "You ever think about Mom and Dad?" Ben asked. "All the time. Do you think they'd be proud of us?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about how we drifted apart for years, about how I let my own grief isolate me, about how he opened his door when I had nowhere to go. "I think they'd be proud that we found each other again." I said. He smiled, tossed a stone into the water. The ripples spread slowly. That night, I slept deeper than I had in weeks, and when I woke, something inside felt a little lighter. Not healed, but less broken. The days rolled on. Elise texted now and then. Little check-ins, jokes, photos of her cat. I found myself smiling when her name popped up. Ben and I started fixing up his garage together, turning it into a space where we could work on our own projects after hours. It felt good to build something, with my hands again. To see progress, to know that not everything had to be lost to time or betrayal. Then, one evening as I was cleaning up, I found an envelope tucked under the windshield of my car. No name, no return address, just a folded piece of paper. I opened it. Inside was a check, $15,000, and a note. I know it doesn't fix anything, but it's a start. I stared at it for a long time, then folded it back and put it in my jacket. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Didn't know if I should keep it, but I knew it meant something. Maybe not redemption, but an effort. The next morning, I didn't mention it to Ben. I just got in the car and drove. Nowhere in particular. Just far enough to clear my head, and as the road stretched ahead, I realized I didn't need all the answers right now. I just needed to keep going, keep breathing, keep showing up. That the rest, I figured, would come in time, and maybe, just maybe, there was still more to this story than what had already been written. The days passed with a strange silence. I no longer looked for answers. I think a part of me just wanted peace, even if it meant never understanding why my daughter did what she did. But peace doesn't come from pretending things didn't happen. It comes from learning to live with them. I had started working part-time at a little antique store downtown. The owner, Margaret, was a kind widow in her 70s with silver curls and a sharp sense of humor. She didn't ask questions. She just gave me a broom on my first day and said, "Sweep slow and think slower. That's how we stay alive." Her words stuck with me. Some days, I sat behind the counter, sipping weak coffee and watching people come and go. It was quiet work, but it gave my mind something to hold on to. It gave my heart space to breathe. One afternoon, as the sun began casting long shadows across the wooden floorboards, the bell over the door jingled softly. I looked up. It was her, my daughter, wearing the same coat I bought her for her 22nd birthday. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, heart pounding. She looked older, or maybe just tired. Her eyes didn't shine the way they used to. She took a tentative step forward. "Dad," she whispered. I stayed still. She fidgeted with the strap of her purse like she used to when she was nervous as a child. "I don't know where to start," she said, eyes glistening. I didn't help her. I couldn't. Not yet. "I messed up," she finally said, voice cracking. Her hands trembled. "I thought I was building something good, something that would make you proud. I didn't see what I was destroying in the process." I breathed in deeply. The scent of old wood and dust and history filled my lungs. Things older than hurt, older than betrayal. She wiped her eyes, stepping closer. "When I got married, everything happened so fast. Liam wanted things. I wanted to be happy. I thought I could fix it later. I thought you'd understand." Her words hung in the air, raw and trembling. I watched her. She wasn't the girl who used to run barefoot across the backyard grass, yelling about fireflies and dreams, but she wasn't a monster either. She was human, flawed, like me, like all of us. "What happened after?" she asked quietly. I looked down at my hands. "Rougher now, older." I lived, I said simply. "I found a room, got a job, learned to make my own coffee again." She gave a sad smile. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Silence stretched between us. It wasn't angry this time. It was just honest. She sat down on the edge of the counter stool. I left him. My eyes met hers, surprised. "He changed," she said. "Or maybe he was always like that. I just didn't see it." She looked away. "I gave up everything for someone who never saw me. And in the process I lost the one person who always did." My heart ached, the kind of ache that doesn't come from bitterness but from memory. From years. From lullabies and birthday cakes and scraped knees. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. "But I needed to say it out loud to your face." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. She stood up slowly. "I just wanted you to know I'm okay. I'm working now. I'm staying in a small apartment. It's not much, but it's mine." She paused, like I should have earned mine, not taken yours. The doorbell jingled as she reached for the handle. She looked back once more. "If you ever want to talk, I'll be around." And just like that, she was gone, leaving behind the scent of jasmine perfume I used to buy her every Christmas. I stood still for a long time, then I sat down on the stool she had just vacated. I stared at the door, my hands gripped the counter edge tight. Then, slowly I let go. A few days later, I found an envelope in the mailbox at the shop. No return address. Just my name in handwriting I'd know anywhere inside. Was a photo. Me and her. She must have found it in an old box. It was taken years ago. Her on my shoulders at the beach, both of us laughing. On the back, she had written, "You carried me then. I'll carry us now, if you let me." Tears welled up in my eyes. For the first time in months, they weren't heavy. They were light. Healing. The next morning, I brought the photo to the shop and placed it on the shelf behind the counter, right next to the dusty cash register. Margaret noticed but didn't say anything. She just gave me a nod. I nodded back. Weeks passed. Then one morning, as I unlocked the shop door, I found a small paper bag hanging on the knob. Inside was a thermos, still warm black coffee, just the way I liked it. No note, no signature, but I knew. I sat behind the counter, sipping slowly, letting the warmth spread through my chest. Something was shifting. Something quiet. Forgiveness doesn't always need fireworks. Sometimes it begins with a cup of coffee. And a memory, and a little photo on a shelf. I don't know what comes next, but for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid to find out.